Hey friends, I hope that the story of Deborah went really well for you this past weekend, and I hope you talked about passivity, because that was kind of the setup for this coming weekend, which is about Jezebel and Ahab. Jezebel and Ahab is in 1 Kings 16:29, and it goes all the way through 1 Kings 22:40. So it's actually not a long story though. There's like pieces of it. So if you're teaching this weekend, or whoever's teaching this weekend, they need to start looking into the story now. It's not a last minute find, because you kind of have to read lots of pieces of the story. So whoever the teacher is, get them to start reading in 1 Kings right away so they can be prepped for this weekend. The main points of the story are that Ahab chooses to marry a woman, and Ahab is a Jewish king who chooses to marry a woman who her entire nation worships Baal. So he married the wrong kind of woman right up front. And it seems clear in the story that the reason why he marries her is that she's hot and very sexual. So he marries her because he's sexually attracted to her, not because it's the right woman to help lead Israel. And this ends up causing him loads of problems. Part of the story is that he wants to buy a field and the man won't sell it to him. And she's like, I'll get that field for you. And she has the man murdered. So she's crazy. And then on top of that, there's a couple of the Israelite prophets who seem to always tell the truth. Elijah is one of them. And any prophets that are telling the truth might tell her husband that she shouldn't listen, or people shouldn't listen to her. And so she starts basically threatening all the prophets, and it sends all the prophets running for the hills. Literally, Elijah, one of the main prophets in the Bible, ends up living in a cave for an extended period of time because Jezebel has threatened to kill him. It actually says in Revelations that the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and it talks about Jezebel again in Revelations as well. So this isn't just a story of the Old Testament. It's something that even now we should be looking for, that if prophecy is the testimony of Jesus, if it's things that point towards Jesus, that it makes sense that this spirit, a Jezebel spirit, would quiet prophets. And so we have to really look out for this even now. And the main thing that we see in the Jezebel spirit, or in the story of Jezebel, is that she's controlling, and she gains more power by being around a man who is passive. So this is something that we shouldn't take lightly. We should listen to the story. But the way that we're going to do it is separate guys and girls, because you can talk more firmly to guys about taking up their authority, and you can talk more firmly to girls about not being controlling when they're separate. It's kind of hard to admonish one or the other in front of the other group. So we're going to separate out. So you need a guy and a girl teacher for this weekend. We mentioned this last week so that you could be looking for it. And on the beat sheet, there are very specific points for each. It would be really cool if you included all of those points, because it's sort of like how to look for if you're ending up in a relationship like this now. And those relationships aren't always like, hey, I'm dating a guy. It could be like my boss, my teacher, guys I just hang around with. For guys, it could just be girls that you hang around, or it could even be teachers for them. Like, you just need to start to notice any relationships you get into where you start to feel that the male is more passive and the girl becomes more assertive, or controlling is the word I would use. So looking for this is really important, once again, because it quiets prophecy in the body, and that's not good. We also have very specific separate question for guys and girls during pod time. So that's really important that you use those questions, because we really thought those through for ones that would stimulate or bring up the conversation better. If you have any questions about this, I know that Ben DeBeau is doing one of the teachings. Greg Trout is teaching in one of the hours. Those are guys that you could contact to ask more questions about how they're going about it. If you have questions for how the girl part is going to be taught, feel free to contact me, or Brianna Cohen, I know, is doing some of the teaching, or Jess DePew. So anyways, those are ways that you could follow up and do the teaching really well this weekend. It's a sensitive topic, because you're kind of talking about, hey girls, one of the questions is like, hey girls, have you ever like adjusted your shirt so that like guys would notice you more? Hey, that's a scary question to ask girls, but it's really important that we kind of like bring this to the surface. So be bold. Tell your leaders to be bold this weekend. You probably have leaders who struggle with some of these pieces as well, passivity in men and controlling women, but it's a really important topic to talk about. Also, we're going to have a couple of announcements this weekend. We're going to be doing baptism on August 21st, that weekend, and so you want to start announcing it now so that they can get a packet so that kids can turn them in and be ready for baptism by that time. And the other one is you service leaders may have noticed that on the original schedule we had community groups starting on July 5th, and we've decided to delay that because of timing with the journey and things like that. So we'll also have announcements ready for this weekend about when we're starting, which I'm not sure right now if it's the last week in July or the 1st of August, but we'll have a slide for you by this weekend that you can make an announcement about that. I think that's the whole weekend, and we definitely all have some Bible Jersey Shore Sesame Streets for you for this weekend as well. Have a good time with it. See ya.